She sat me down on a Sunday evening and said she needed a break. Not a breakup, just a break. 2 weeks to travel Europe with someone she used to date before me. She promised it was about finding herself, reconnecting with old friends, nothing romantic. She said if I loved her, I would understand. She said she would come back ready to fully commit to our marriage. Then she kissed me on the forehead like I was a child and went upstairs to pack. She boarded that plane Thursday morning, thinking I would be waiting when she returned. Instead, I filed for divorce Tuesday, froze our accounts Wednesday, and changed the locks before her flight even landed. Let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe, because what happened in the 72 hours after she asked for that break will show you exactly how to protect yourself when someone stops protecting you. I met Stephanie when I was 31, working as a software engineer in Seattle. She was 29, a graphic designer at a startup downtown. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue, hit it off immediately. She was creative, spontaneous, the kind of person who made life feel more interesting. I was structured, analytical, grounded. We balanced each other, or so I thought. We dated for a year before moving in together. Rented an apartment near Capitol Hill with exposed brick and big windows. She filled it with art and plants. I filled it with books and tech gadgets. It felt like home. We got engaged 2 years into the relationship. Small proposal at a coffee shop we went to on our first date. She cried, said yes, posted photos on social media within minutes. The wedding was in the San Juan Islands, about 60 people. Her family flew in from the East Coast. My parents and brother drove up from California. It was beautiful, simple, everything we wanted. We honeymooned in Japan, spent 2 weeks exploring Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. Came back talking about how lucky we were to have found each other. The first 3 years of marriage were good. We both worked demanding jobs but made time for each other. Weekend hikes in the Cascades, dinners at new restaurants, game nights with friends. We talked about buying a house, maybe starting a family in a few years. Everything felt on track. Then Stephanie reconnected with someone from her past. His name was Garrett. They dated in college for 2 years before breaking up when he moved to Europe for work. They had stayed loosely in touch over the years through social media, but nothing significant. Then Garrett moved back to the States to New York and reached out. Said he was visiting Seattle for work and wanted to catch up. Stephanie asked if I minded if she got coffee with him. I said of course not. They were friends. I trusted her. She came home from that coffee and talked about how great it was to reconnect, how Garrett was doing well in finance, how mature they both were now compared to college. I was happy she had a positive experience with someone from her past. No red flags, no concerns. But after that coffee, Garrett started appearing more in her life, text messages throughout the day, phone calls that she took in another room. She started mentioning him regularly. Garrett said this. Garrett thinks that. Garrett recommended this restaurant. I started feeling uneasy, but did not want to be the jealous husband who policed friendships. So I said nothing. 4 months after that initial coffee, Stephanie told me Garrett was planning a trip to Europe. A 2-week tour through France, Italy, and Spain. He had invited her to join, as friends. She wanted my opinion on whether she should go. I asked if she was seriously considering traveling internationally with an ex-boyfriend. She got defensive, said I was being insecure, that they were just friends, that this was about travel, not romance, that she had always wanted to see Europe and this was a great opportunity. I told her it made me uncomfortable, that traveling alone with an ex for 2 weeks crossed boundaries for me. She said I was being controlling, that I did not own her, that she needed space to be her own person, not just my wife. We argued for days. She accused me of not trusting her. I accused her of not respecting our marriage. It escalated into the biggest fight we had ever had. Then she shifted tactics, stopped fighting, got calm, sat me down and said she thought we needed a break. Not a divorce, not even a separation, just a break. 2 weeks where she could travel, clear her head, figure out what she wanted. She said our marriage had become stagnant, that we had fallen into routines and lost the excitement. that she needed to remember who she was outside of being a wife. I asked if this break involved traveling with Garrett. She admitted it did. Said he had already booked everything, that it would be a waste for her not to go, that this was about her personal growth. She promised nothing would happen, that it was purely platonic, that she loved me and would come back ready to recommit fully to our marriage. I sat there listening to her justify traveling across Europe with an ex-boyfriend as some kind of spiritual journey. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to beg her not to go. But a bigger part of me knew exactly what this was. She was not taking a break. She was testing the waters with Garrett while keeping me as a backup option. And she expected me to just sit there and wait. I told her if she got on that plane, we were done. She said I was issuing ultimatums like a child. That if I really loved her, I would give her the space she needed. That she was going regardless of my feelings. Then she went upstairs to pack. That conversation happened on a Sunday evening. Her flight was Thursday morning. She gave me 4 days to come to terms with her decision. I did not spend those 4 days coming to terms with anything. I spent them protecting myself. Monday morning, I called in sick to work. Then I called a divorce attorney, a woman named Angela who had been recommended by a colleague who went through a messy split. I explained the situation. My wife wanted a break to travel Europe with her ex-boyfriend for 2 weeks, was leaving in 3 days, expected me to wait for her return. Angela asked if I wanted to save the marriage. I said I wanted to protect myself from someone who clearly did not respect me. She said we needed to move fast. That once Stephanie left the country, things would get complicated. But if we filed before she left, we could freeze assets and establish control before she had a chance to respond. Angela explained that Washington is a community property state. That anything acquired during marriage is split 50-50 unless there are prenuptial agreements or fault factors. We did not have a prenup, but we did have her abandoning the marriage to travel with an ex, which could be argued as grounds for an at-fault divorce, even though Washington is technically no fault. It would not change the financial split much, but it would matter in court. I asked what I needed to do. Angela said first document everything. Save texts, emails, any evidence of her relationship with Garrett. Second, separate finances as much as legally possible before filing. Third, secure the house and any shared property. Fourth, be prepared for her to come back furious and hire her own attorney. This was going to be a fight. I spent Monday gathering evidence, screenshots of text conversations between Stephanie and Garrett that I could access from our shared tablet. Months of messages that went from friendly to flirty to outright inappropriate. Messages where she complained about me. Messages where he encouraged her to leave. Messages where they discussed the trip in detail, including hotel rooms and romantic locations. It was all there. Undeniable proof that this was not just a friendship. I also pulled our financial records. We had a joint checking account, joint savings with about $40,000 and individual retirement accounts. I contributed roughly 70% of our household income. She contributed 30%. Our apartment was a rental, so no property to divide. 2 cars, both paid off, one in each name. Pretty straightforward asset split. Tuesday morning, Angela filed the divorce petition. Cited irreconcilable differences and abandonment of marriage. Requested immediate temporary orders, freezing joint accounts, and preventing either party from disposing of assets. We filed in King County Superior Court. The petition would be served to Stephanie at our apartment on Wednesday. Tuesday afternoon, I went to the bank. Withdrew half of the joint savings, $20,000, and deposited it into a new individual account. Left the other $20,000 for her. Split the checking account the same way. All legal, all documented, all done before she could access the money herself. I also contacted the landlord, explained we were divorcing, asked about lease obligations. He said either of us could stay as long as rent was paid, or we could both leave and break the lease with a penalty. I told him I would be staying. Tuesday evening, Stephanie came home from work, excited about her trip. Showed me her itinerary. Paris first, then Nice, then Florence, then Rome, then Barcelona. 2 weeks of adventure. She was practically glowing. I nodded along, said it sounded nice. She asked if I was okay with everything. I lied and said I was working on accepting it. She seemed relieved, hugged me, said she loved me. I said nothing back. Wednesday morning I went to work. Told my boss I was dealing with a personal crisis and might need some flexibility over the next few weeks. He was understanding. That afternoon, a process server arrived at our apartment. Stephanie was home, taking the day off to finish packing. She answered the door. Got served with divorce papers. Called me immediately screaming. I was in a meeting. Stepped out to take the call. She was hysterical, demanding to know what I was doing. I told her calmly that she said she wanted space to figure out what she wanted. I was giving her permanent space. If she wanted to travel with Garrett, she could do it as a single woman. She screamed that I was overreacting, that she was not leaving me, that this was just a trip. I said the papers disagree. Then I hung up. She called 17 more times. I did not answer. She texted saying we needed to talk, that I was making a huge mistake, that she was not going to let me divorce her over this. I responded with one text. You made your choice. I made mine. Have a good trip. Then I blocked her number. Wednesday evening, I went to our apartment while she was out. Changed the locks. Washington law allowed it as long as I provided her access to retrieve her belongings, which I would. But I was not going to let her come and go freely while we were in the middle of a divorce. I also packed some of her essential items. Closed toiletries, her laptop. Left them in the hallway outside the new locks with a note. Your belongings. You can arrange to get the rest through your attorney. Thursday morning, Stephanie's flight was at 8 a.m. I have no idea if she got on it. Angela said she tried calling our office Wednesday night, furious, demanding we drop the petition. Angela told her we would not be dropping anything, that Stephanie was free to hire her own attorney and respond appropriately. Thursday afternoon, I got an email from an attorney representing Stephanie, threatening legal action for freezing accounts and changing locks. Angela responded with copies of the temporary orders the court had granted. Everything I did was legal. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Stephanie did get on that plane. Went to Europe with Garrett despite being served with divorce papers the day before. Her attorney argued this proved she was not abandoning the marriage, that the trip was pre-planned and she was entitled to go. Angela argued it proved exactly the opposite, that she prioritized a vacation with an ex over addressing the dissolution of her marriage. From Europe, Stephanie sent emails. Long rambling messages about how I was ruining everything, how she never meant to hurt me, how this was not what she wanted. She said she was coming back early to fix this, that we could go to counseling, that she was willing to cut off Garrett completely if I just dropped the divorce. I did not respond to any of it. Angela advised no contact except through attorneys. Anything I said could be used against me, so I stayed silent. Let her spiral in Europe while I built my case at home. Stephanie's attorney tried to get the temporary orders reversed, argued I had no right to freeze accounts or change locks. The judge denied the motion, said the orders were appropriate given the circumstances, that Stephanie could access her funds through proper channels and retrieve her belongings with advance notice. The judge also noted that choosing to leave the country during divorce proceedings did not reflect well on her commitment to resolving the matter. While Stephanie was in Europe, I moved forward with my life, worked, went to the gym, spent time with friends who supported me, told my family what happened. They were shocked but supportive. My mom said she always thought Stephanie was impulsive, but hoped she would mature. My brother said I did the right thing, that no one should tolerate being treated like a backup plan. I also started therapy. Needed to process the betrayal and the rapid implosion of my marriage. My therapist said I was handling things remarkably well, that most people in my situation would have fallen apart. I told her I did not have the luxury of falling apart. I had to protect myself. She said that mindset would serve me well, but to make sure I also allowed myself to grieve. I said I would grieve when this was over. Stephanie returned from Europe after 10 days instead of 2 weeks. Her attorney notified Angela that she was back and wanted to discuss settlement. We agreed to a mediation session. I showed up with Angela. Stephanie showed up with her attorney, a man named Paul, who looked exhausted. Stephanie tried to talk to me directly. I would not look at her. She started crying, saying I was being cruel, that we had been married for 4 years and I would not even look at her. Angela told her to address comments to her attorney, not to me. Paul tried to negotiate a reconciliation period. Angela shut it down, said I was not interested in reconciliation. We were there to discuss division of assets. The mediation lasted 3 hours. We agreed to split the savings and checking accounts 50-50, which was already done. We agreed she would keep her car, I would keep mine. She wanted half the value of my retirement account accumulated during marriage. I agreed because Washington law entitled her to it. She wanted spousal maintenance. I refused. Angela argued she had income and earning capacity, that the marriage was short, that maintenance was not warranted. Paul pushed back, but eventually agreed to drop the request. The final settlement gave Stephanie about $35,000 total. Her half of savings, her half of checking her portion of my retirement account, distributed as a qualified domestic relations order, plus her car and personal belongings. I kept everything else. The divorce would be final in 90 days per Washington law. Stephanie signed the agreement but kept trying to talk to me, saying she made a mistake, that the trip with Garrett meant nothing, that they did not even sleep together, that she realized on the plane back that she wanted to be married to me, that she would do anything to fix this. I finally looked at her and said, "You already did everything. You chose him over me. You do not get to undo that." She broke down completely. Paul had to escort her out of the room. Angela and I finalized paperwork. I signed everything. It was done. 4 years of marriage ended in a conference room because she thought I would wait around while she explored life with someone else. The 90-day waiting period was brutal. Stephanie tried everything to reach me, showed up at my apartment multiple times. I did not answer. She contacted my friends. They shut her down. She sent letters. I threw them away unopened. She even reached out to my parents. My mom told her politely but firmly that I had made my decision and they supported me. Garrett disappeared from her life almost immediately. Turns out traveling with someone who was in the middle of a divorce she caused was not the romantic adventure he imagined. He stopped responding to her messages within weeks of them returning. Stephanie was left with nothing. No marriage, no Garrett, just the consequences of her choices. I heard through mutual friends that she was struggling, lost her job due to performance issues related to the stress, moved back east to stay with her parents, was in therapy trying to process what happened. I felt no sympathy. She made every decision that led to this outcome. I just refused to be collateral damage. The divorce was finalized exactly 90 days after we filed. I got the official decree in the mail. Signed by a judge, marriage dissolved. I was single again. I took myself out to dinner that night. Sat alone at a nice restaurant, ordered a steak and a whiskey, and toasted to freedom. It felt surreal. 4 years of my life gone, but also a weight lifted. In the year since the divorce finalized, I have rebuilt completely. I got promoted at work, moved to a better apartment with a view of the Sound, started dating casually. Met someone a few months ago who is straightforward and honest. We are taking things slow, but it feels healthy. No games, no exes in the picture. Just 2 people getting to know each other. I also processed the grief my therapist said I needed to address. Acknowledged that I love Stephanie, that I thought we would build a life together, that her betrayal hurt deeply. But I also acknowledged that I did the right thing. That waiting for her to come back from that trip would have destroyed my self-respect. That filing immediately protected me legally and emotionally. Stephanie reached out once since the divorce finalized. Sent an email on what would have been our 5th anniversary. Said she thought about me often. That she regretted everything. That she understood why I did what I did, but hoped someday I could forgive her. I did not respond. There is nothing to say. Forgiveness is not something she gets to request. It is something I give myself by moving forward. I ran into someone who knew Stephanie recently. They said she was doing better, working again, in a new relationship, trying to move on. I am glad for her, not because I care about her happiness, but because it means she will leave me alone. We both get to move forward separately, which is exactly what should happen. Looking back, the decision to file before she boarded that plane was the smartest thing I ever did. If I had waited, if I had let her go and come back, the power dynamic would have shifted entirely. She would have controlled the narrative. Would have come back and either ended things on her terms or strung me along while she figured out what she wanted. Filing immediately took that power away, made it clear I was not a backup option. That disrespecting me had immediate permanent consequences. Some people said I overreacted, that I should have let her go, let her get it out of her system, then worked on the marriage. But those people do not understand self-respect. When someone asks you to wait while they explore a relationship with someone else, they have already left. The physical trip does not matter. The mental and emotional departure already happened. I just made the legal reality match what was already true. I am 36 now, divorced, successful in my career, dating someone I respect, living in a city I love, building a life that no one can take away because I protected it when I needed to. And every day I am grateful I trusted my instincts. Grateful I did not wait around hoping she would choose me. Grateful I chose myself first. It has been 18 months since Stephanie asked for that break. 18 months since I filed for divorce before her plane took off. 18 months since I learned that protecting yourself is not cruel, it is necessary. And honestly, life has never been better. The promotion I got led to another opportunity. I am now a senior engineer leading a team of 12. Work I am proud of. Challenges that excite me. Colleagues who respect me. The career I put on hold during my marriage because I was focused on us is now thriving because I am focused on me. The woman I have been seeing, her name is Morgan, moved in with me 3 months ago. We had a long conversation about trust boundaries and expectations before making that decision. She knows my history, knows I have walls up. She has been patient. We are building something slow and solid. No rushing, no assumptions, just honest communication. It feels completely different from what I had with Stephanie. I also reconnected with hobbies I abandoned during marriage, started rock climbing again, joined a recreational soccer league, bought a motorcycle I always wanted but Stephanie said was too dangerous. I am living for myself in ways I had not in years. Turns out, when you are not constantly managing someone else's feelings and decisions, you have a lot more energy for your own life. My brother got engaged recently, asked me to be his best man. At the engagement party, his fiancée asked me for relationship advice. I told her the only advice that matters. Never make someone a priority who makes you an option. She laughed, said that was dark. I said it was realistic. My brother said it was the most important thing anyone could hear. I have not heard from Stephanie in over a year. The last I know, she moved to North Carolina, working for a nonprofit, single, starting over. I hope she learned something from what happened. I hope she treats the next person better than she treated me. But honestly, I do not think about her much anymore. She is a closed chapter, a lesson learned, nothing more. What I learned from this entire experience is that closure is not something someone gives you. It is something you take for yourself. Stephanie wanted to leave the door open, wanted to explore other options while keeping me available. I closed that door, locked it, moved on. That was my closure. And it was more powerful than any conversation or explanation she could have given. I also learned that fast, decisive action in the face of disrespect is the only appropriate response. Waiting to see what happens, giving chances to people who do not deserve them, hoping things will change, all of that just prolongs pain. When someone shows you they do not value you, believe them immediately and act accordingly. The 72 hours between her asking for a break and me changing the locks defined the rest of my life. If I had hesitated, if I had hoped she would change her mind, if I had waited for her to return, I would have spent months or years in limbo. Instead, I cut it off cleanly, took control, moved forward, and saved myself from prolonged agony. To anyone in a similar situation, someone asking for space to explore other options while expecting you to wait, hear this clearly. You are not a backup plan. You are not a safety net. You are not someone's placeholder while they figure out if they can do better. You deserve to be someone's first choice. And if you are not, walk away immediately. File the papers, change the locks, protect yourself, because no one else will do it for you. Stephanie thought she could have both, the stability of marriage and the excitement of an affair. She thought I was passive enough to tolerate it. She was wrong. And by the time she realized her mistake, it was too late. The plane she boarded as a married woman landed with her as a soon-to-be divorcee. That was not cruelty, that was consequences. I am proud of how I handled it. Proud that I did not beg, did not plead, did not compromise my self-respect. Proud that I moved with speed and precision to protect what was mine. Proud that I am thriving now while she is rebuilding from scratch. Not because I want her to suffer, but because I refuse to suffer for her choices. So here I am, 36 years old, living in Seattle, successful, in a healthy relationship, surrounded by people who respect me, building a future that is entirely mine. And none of it would be possible if I had waited for someone who did not deserve my loyalty. Stephanie asked for a break. I gave her a permanent one. Best decision I ever made. Have you ever been asked to wait while someone explored other options? What did you do? Would you have filed immediately or given them the space they asked for? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story hit home, smash that like button and share it with anyone who needs to hear that you are not a backup plan. Subscribe for more real stories about standing up, protecting yourself, and refusing to accept disrespect disguised as personal growth. Thank you for watching. Thank you for understanding that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away the moment someone asks you to wait. Take care of yourselves and remember, you teach people how to treat you. Teach them well.